good to have you both here. Jacqueline, it's been a while since I've seen you, and Happy New Year to you guys. How's it
Happy New
going?
Happy New Year,
Year.
Brian.
Yeah. All right. So this is going to be our first time go at this. We're hitting several news topics for today. Topic number one is supplement trends for 2024. Topic number two, top supplement companies or fastest growing brands for 2024. Topic number three, consumer behavior trends for 2024. So in the food and supplement space. And with us today are two really cool, amazing people, very special guests. Thank you so much for being here. We've got Bobby and Jacqueline. Thank you both for coming. I'm excited to tackle this. I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm excited to hear your thoughts, get your feedback, all of it. I'm sure the viewers are as well. But before we do, maybe Bobby, maybe you can start. Just introduce yourself really quickly, and then Jacqueline will move over to you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Brian. I'm Bobby Hewitt. I basically work with supplement companies one-on-one on a consulting basis to help improve conversion, average order value, and lifetime value.
Awesome. Thanks, Bobby. And this is your second time on the channel. So,
Yeah,
hey,
second time on the
I think
show.
you're a favorite among the viewers. That's that's the feedback I've been getting. Jacqueline, it's been a while since I've seen you. Where, for those that don't know, and Bobby, if you don't know, we're ex-Vega. So she's from the R&D side. We work together at Vega. Go ahead, Jacqueline. What's your background?
So my name is Jacqueline Cornejo. I'm a food scientist. I have been working in the Canadian food industry for 12, 13 years almost. So all my career has been in R&D, so product development. I did a little bit of regulatory work as well. But yes, it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited, and it's so good to see you.
Yeah, and I know we're just throwing you right into the thick of things. So this will be fun. And I know, Jacqueline, when we talk, you're always like, hey, Brian, like I'm more of the food in the food space. I would argue you're in both. I think there's a lot that someone like myself could learn from you. Those in the supplement space can learn from you. I mean, we talk about powders, flavoring, all the R&D component side to it. All of that is incredibly important. So thank you for being here. So today we're going to be doing something very, very different. Usually like we do like a interview style or, educational content here. Instead, we're going to be talking about news topics. And I don't know, I feel like this will be a fun format to try. And I was like bouncing around like, what am I going to call this segment? Like, it's kind of like a show feel to it to me. And I'm like, what should I call this? And I don't have a name. I don't know if you guys might have a name for this. And the best one that I could come up with was the supplement facts, like supplement facts, but facts. But then at the same time, I'm like, it's not really factual. It's more opinion. I don't know if you guys, anything that comes to mind as to what you can call it.
I like the pun, but I feel you on the fact side of things. That's a slippery slope. Right?
Yeah.
More like I don't know, supplement corner, supplement roundtable.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Maybe we
like
put it
it.
out to the viewers, right? Maybe we put it out to the viewers, let them come up with some names, and maybe give a prize to the winner or something. I don't know.
Oh, you heard it here first. We'll give people a prize from Bobby. No, that'd be great. Yeah, if there's anyone that has an idea for a name, throw it in the chat below. All right, shall we jump into the very first topic? So the first one here is the dietary supplement trends and markets to watch in 2024. Now, this article is using SPINS data. And we can just jump on the first one here. So the first category that they're seeing growth or expect growth is in the performance space. The fastest growing category for the past 2 years and what's clearly on trend for the third straight year is performance nutrition. We see a new focus on not just in the supplement industry, but throughout all industries on health span, staying active, healthy for longer. It's really, performance nutrition is really leading the way in bringing older generations and women. For example, hydration it continues to be a high growth category. A lot of people are using hydration supplements as a hangover remedy. What was once mainly used for sports performance is now used for enhancing your performance throughout the day. What do you guys think? Any initial thoughts? Bobby, we'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah. My initial thoughts is anytime you have a supplement that you can kind of slice into multiple niches, it's always great, right? Because then you can really kind of develop a strategy to dominate the marketplace and not compete with a bunch of other players, right? So performance space is always a big space. It's always an up and coming space. I think the way to slice it, the way to capitalize it is kind of moving away from the performance terminology, right? Because that's pretty much people that are either professional athletes or semi-professional athletes or consider themselves athletes. But there's a big blue ocean in the performance, quote unquote, right, for that older audience. Who don't necessarily see themselves as performance and don't really want to get a boost or an edge, but it's really more about longevity, right? And continuing to feel good throughout the day. So it could be the same ingredients, the same kind of product, right? The same hydration, the same maybe pre-workout kind of elements, but positioned in a very different way to go after a different market.
Interesting. Any thoughts there, Jacqueline, on this topic?
Well, I mean, I think it's interesting the positioning of the word supplement for performance. I think it gives the opportunity to go into different time of day to use it. So, for example, you're not going to use it when you are working out, just when you're working out. You will use it when you are feeling, low on energy. So you might want to have the supplement because it's going to give you a little bit of energy. So it brings more opportunity to use it in several different times of the day. So you can, position it as a bridge between your lunch and your dinner. You can have something there that can help you get to the next meal without feeling completely low on energy or really hungry. It could be an interesting option, an opportunity to use those times of day where you wouldn't use a supplement or you wouldn't drink it.
I guess for those that don't know, Jacqueline, you're a marathoner, right? Like you're quite competitive. Yeah, you actually, I've seen some of your posts. And what's your, like, I'm curious, how do you use supplements right now? If you do, especially in this performance way, do you utilize it in a more performance aspect, or is it more of a wellness? And I think that's kind of where Bobby was hinting at that. I'm just kind of curious now as to how you utilize that, if you do add that to your regimen or not.
I do. I use it for both, to be honest. I use it as to maintain my health when I'm off-season training. When I'm not training, I do it more to keep healthy. When I am working out, then I will use it. I have a better performance. So, but it changes slightly when I'm off-season and when I'm working out. But I continuously use supplements through the year. It just changes the way I use them. So, for example, I will be taking a little more on stress management when I'm off season, just to keep, controlling my stress, because I'm not working out as much as I would if I'm training. But I will keep using a spirulina all the time, for example, or chlorella or turmeric, things that are really helpful to maintain inflammation control. So other things.
Interesting.
But yeah, I use supplements through the year.
And Bobby, your point was around, performance isn't necessarily just performance only. Is that right? Like, were you trying to say that, hey, it's not just performance, there's other categories or ways to define performance? Or I'm just trying to get a sense of where you're going with that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, right? Because the performance market could be pretty finicky. They're kind of switching from product to product to product all the time, looking for that little edge. Is this thing going to work? Is this next thing going to give me that little better boost? So it makes for a shorter term lifetime value and a much higher churn type of customer. Whereas there are other markets that, if you tap into maybe not necessarily performance, but that same solution that it's solving, typically those customers are better customers than like the bodybuilding customers, let's say, right? Because bodybuilders are always just looking for, like I said, the next thing, that edge. They're switching constantly. Very similar to a weight loss market as well.
Interesting. Yeah, and it sounds kind of like what Jacqueline was just saying. Well, I take the spirulina throughout the year from a healthy inflammation standpoint, or to minimize inflammation. That's like a long-term, it's a lifestyle supplement almost. It's like it's something that you need to have all the time. And I'm hearing this element from you, Bobby, like, well, that's what you want, because you want that long-term customer. So maybe it's repositioning the performance, but in that more long-term lens versus just need the hit right before I compete or something along those lines.
Exactly, right? I mean, performance is always a strong category, right? Because of that, because the need and the desire is much higher in those people, are doing those marathons, and even professionals or semi-professionals, or people who want the edge. They're willing to pay more. They're willing to pay for premium products. And that kind of customer is actually kind of the opposite of a typical supplement customer, right? It's more of a positive frame versus a negative frame. And the positive frame, it's easier to sell to, for one, and two, they typically are willing to pay more, and they typically stick longer as well. So my thinking is there's opportunity here to take performance, quote unquote, performance supplement category and reposition it for sort of a lower tiered mass market, not a lower tier price, but a lower tiered non-performance market.
I think that would lead us to maybe the next category here that they speak to, which is this total wellness component. And it's interesting. They say, I don't think people are going to get less stressed. I don't think they're going to naturally sleep more. These products need to work, but people are going to continue looking for stress support, mood support, sleep support. They're all tied together. People are figuring out this total wellness. I think there's something there about what you're saying, like how do we create that narrative of performance tied to this total wellness, but at the same time, at least this article is kind of presenting them a little bit separate. And here's the other thing too. This is opening product opportunities as companies market old ingredients into new categories. Who's seen this before? I know I have. They talk about collagen. We've seen that happen with creatine. Any thoughts here on this point?
I'll let Jacqueline go first this time since I went first last time.
I think it comes back to, and we'll talk later about this, in the food and drink category, we see a lot of the healthy aging, and it's been there for quite a while. So we're looking at things that worked in the past and how can we bring them to what we consume every day? How can we use what was used, like several years ago that worked, but we put it now in this new way of, delivering a food or a drink. So I think we see it all the time. So it's interesting to see what will be for 2024. I have a feeling that we might see more mushrooms again coming into the supplement and food in 2024. So I think it's hard not to do it, right? It's just you're constantly trying to find new things, but it's better to go and see what worked in the past and how we can introduce it in something that we're creating currently in this year.
I feel like I've seen it so many times and it kind of all has blurred over the years, over the last 20 years or so. Bobby, your thoughts?
The supplement market loves new and novel stuff, right? So this is like a page out of the standard supplement marketing playbook. Like tried and true has been used for decades, right? Find the thing that used to do this. Now there's new science, new research that uncovers that it also does this other thing, right? That opens up a whole new market, a whole new use case, a whole new solution problem that was completely untapped before. So it's really rejuvenating an ingredient, if you will, to a new market, a new customer, a new niche. And I think it really probably follows the science behind it, right? Is once new science uncovers new findings, then the marketers come in behind it and say, okay, now we've got to position this.
Yeah. Have you seen how brands might do it without the science? Like, I feel like there's an element there. I'm just curious if you've seen like a tried and true strategy or a recurring theme that brands have used. Yeah, and to clarify, like when I say there's no science, I mean like no, in terms of retelling a different story or something along those lines, like clinical trials, for example. But there's probably like an animal study or an in vitro study that we're kind of basing the premise on.
Without the science, well, there's a lot of supplement companies out there that don't use science, right? So yeah, there are plenty. I think it really comes down to the unique mechanism and the hook of that unique mechanism, right? So that's one way to do it kind of without the science behind it, right? It's that this is what it does in the body. There's really no research behind it. There's no studies behind it. Theoretically, this is kind of how it works and how it would perform, and then tie that back to the unique mechanism of trust as to why you should use this and take this.
There's a part of me that feels like it's kind of like FDA when they repurpose drugs. Like, oh, this is an anti-arthritic drug. The patent runs out. Then they don't want to create a new drug, so they just create a new function or purpose for it, and they kind of reposition the drug and get a patent that way. I don't know. There's a part of it that feels like that. But but there's definitely this resurgence of ingredients, and to me, I don't know how it happens. It just does. And I'm like, we already did this collagen thing before. It didn't do well. And then all of a sudden, Vital Protein comes along and they just like destroy the category or explode the category. And then everyone wants to put collagen in there. And I'm like, why? What happened? We already went through this song and dance and no one wanted it. Anyway.
Well, do you feel like, I'm curious, do both of you or either of you feel like there's just not enough like new ingredients that come along? So they're kind of forced to go back to the drawing board?
I'll let Jacqueline take that one. What do you think? That's a great question, by the way.
It is a great question. And I think it's very hard to innovate, especially where I am. I see less and less ingredients that will be functional ingredients. I see a lot of development on, let's say, hydrocolloids and how they can create a new gum system that will help with your clean label, for example. So I see innovation in very specific areas, but not functional. So I haven't seen a lot of new ingredients where we can say, this is like a collagen, but it's not, not collagen, but works as a collagen. We haven't seen that in a long time. It's really hard to innovate in this space, in the ingredient space, and it's really slow.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think we're seeing a lot of compliance crackdown, like behind the scene, not like what we see from a brand level, but the ingredient level. So a lot of these ingredient suppliers, they want to pitch to the large CPG brands. And, from a compliance standpoint, the first question that usually comes to mind is, what's the history of use? So theoretically, if there's no history of use because it's innovative, well, it's hard to get approval. Like it's kind of like a chicken and an egg scenario. And a lot of these ingredient suppliers don't have the funding to put all the testing in place to really show that this is safe. And anyway, the whole situation is essentially it stalls innovation, right? Because they want to see history of use or safe use or safety. Well, that means it's got to be in the market for a while, or people have to have used it, or clinical trials or something of that sort. And no one wants to invest in that, or they don't have the funds to, or they're waiting for the other guys to do it first. And so to Jacqueline's point, as a result, in my world, and I think in Jacqueline's world, we see less and less innovation possible. And the ones that are innovating, they realize, we've got this great nano ingredient or something like that. They might get a few brands that buy into it, and they might do well, and all of a sudden it hits a wall, like regulatory wise, it hits a wall. And then it's like a CBD, but behind the scenes, you're like, no one wants it anymore. And then to me, I feel like that's the driver of why we're seeing this retelling, and then people are just going to stick to the ingredients that we all know and love and repurpose in the sense of let's look at a different angle, let's look at a different mechanism of action, let's study it in a different way. That I think that's kind of what's driving it, at least from my point of view. Versus less desire for the market in general to innovate. There's a lot of people that at least reach out. They're like, hey, we have this great ingredient. And I'm like, okay, hold on. But just compliance wise, where are we standing? Like, even though, yes, there's going to be some risk, where do we stand? And then usually it's a blank stare. And if we take something like pea protein, I use the example with them. I'm like, let's pretend it's like 2004 right now. And I have a new pea protein that I want to use. It's highly isolated pea protein. Theoretically, that there is no history of safe use. Theoretically, it might not have GRAS status yet, but everyone went to market. And then now you fast forward to like today, for some reason, FDA and all, they're like, oh yeah, it's fine, you can use it. At the same time, it wasn't. I think there was just a huge influx in the market. And I'm like, why? How come pea protein's okay now, but it wasn't okay before, and nothing's really officially changed? So I just feel like there's this element of chicken and the egg, and then somehow the compliance just stalls innovation or doesn't encourage it. Something needs to be done about that, but I don't know. I know I'm going on a tangent here, but there's something there.
Absolutely. I think you're right. It reminds me of kind of the marketplace sophistication and awareness curve, right? Where I think the collagen is a great example, where it failed in the past, but now it's the next best thing. And it really takes a while for the marketplace, the consumers, to really hear about it, trust it, know about it, and then for whatever reason it's just the right time in the zeitgeist, right, to take off at this point in time. Very similar to the pea protein as well. So I think the consumer end kind of drives maybe not the innovation, but probably the desire for what's old is new again.
Jacqueline, you mentioned that mushrooms was maybe an ingredient that you could see in the future coming up for 2024. Any other ingredients that you might feel might be warm on the horizon or coming down the pipe?
Not really for ingredients, but I think plant-based will still be a very strong. Pretty much everything plant-based will continue being a strong new for 2024. Something to keep an eye on because it just gets better and better every year, right? We get better products, more products. But yeah, I feel strong about mushrooms. I think it's going to be an interesting one to keep an eye on, and not just one type of mushroom, but there's a lot of new research on several of them. So I think more variety will be something to keep an eye on.
Very cool. Let's keep going. I know that this article, there's like shopping values is another category here. This article keeps going. I just want to show, I'm going to just fast forward a little bit. Check this out. Ingredients and markets to watch. So you have women's health. Guess what? Hey, look at that. Mushrooms are there as well. So Jacqueline, you called it. Fiber and the microbiome. Next gen adaptogens. I'm curious to know what that is. Does anybody have thoughts on what a next gen adaptogen might be?
Sadly, I have no idea.
I know ashwagandha was huge. It's been big for the last couple of years. To me, I feel like it's kind of become almost, it's kind of lost its shininess now, its novelty. So I'm really curious to see what that next one's going to be. I don't know, maybe ginseng? I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah, any thoughts here on the categories component? What do you guys think is coming up for 2024? Any predictions?
I think Jacqueline's spot on with the mushroom category. I see that growing for the past several years. I don't think we're at like a tipping point yet, though. I don't think that like the common consumer is aware of it yet. So that means a couple of things, right? One, that's kind of good. We're still at the early stages. You can still get into the market, but it's also bad because we're at the early stages and the early adopters or the early marketers are taking all the arrows to their back, right, as they're going first, because the market is just not educated enough yet. It's that marketing awareness is not there yet to capitalize upon. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. Jacqueline, you're going to say something?
I was thinking on some of the trends that I've seen for food and drink. One of the areas of opportunity is going to be on, they call it redefining healthy aging. So everything that, it wasn't considered, topics or aging concerns that were stigmatized or were taboo will now be, and something that will be discussed openly, like menopause. So how can we help with all those symptoms, and how can brands can help that generation to transition during those periods to feel better, and how can they help with different life stages for that generation, which is Generation X, I think 44 to 48, 58. So that will be interesting to see how we can see that generation aging and looking for things to feel better as they age.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I'm not in that generation. Maybe Bobby can.
Yeah, I'm definitely Generation X. Gen X are definitely different buyers than boomers.
Yeah.
But eventually everyone becomes a boomer, right? Eventually everyone ages up to that boomer category. So I don't think that age group will really go away, even if they're Gen Xers, right? Fast forward 20 years from now and the Gen Xers are 60, 70, I think they're going to behave similar to the baby boomers right now.
There's a part of me that feels that Gen X or even the generations after that, they're more welcoming of supplements. Like they'll build that in. They're not scared of it. It doesn't feel like it's unfamiliar or snake oily. I don't know if that's, if you guys have a thought on that. I just remember when I look at my dad, or it was only the multivitamin. Like that was what was considered acceptable. Now it's like you said, Jack, like, okay, well, what are some options for, the menopause side, the mushroom side, where tea boosters are really big, right? And the nootropics. people are just generally more open to supplements, supplementation, lifestyle changes, food, like all of it. Yeah, I'm curious to see if that habit sticks as they age, or like maybe the industry blows up even more. Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see where that's going to go.
Yeah, that would be great to see. I mean, I think it will blow up even more, but I also think that at that point, like everything is going to be plant based. Like all the new and novel things now are going to be commonplace, right? So all those competitive factors are kind of going to go away. It's like, yeah, we're all plant based. Yeah, we're all science backed. We all have the best ingredients. Like we all have sustainability sourcing. And then it's going to get harder to compete. But I think the marketplace is going to be much bigger.
With plant based being well accepted, do you guys think there's going to be a resurgence on animal based categories? The carnivore diet comes to mind. Any thoughts there? I see Jacqueline kind of smiling there. What do you guys think? Like, do you think it could swing the other way around? Not necessarily in 2024, but in the future.
I think
Oh, go ahead, Bobby. Go ahead.
I think it could. I think there's always, like in marketing, polarization is key, right? If you can polarize the audience, if you can just get down to a niche market, you can really compete against like the competition, right? So there is a couple of liver-based kind of raw ingredients that I'm thinking of brands out there already in the marketplace. There are small niches, but really strong, engaged people and passionate people around that niche. So I do think that is it going to swing back around in like a big way? In 2024, absolutely not, right? But in the next 10 years, I doubt it in a big way, but I think there's always going to be room for that niche group.
Yes, I totally agree. I think there will be an opportunity for it, but my mind went to sustainability and how climate change and sustainability will play a role if it comes back. I think there is going to be a need to consider those two when, if that's the case, that a carnivore diet becomes something in the future. I think we cannot separate those two from that fact.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I just highlighted that here in the screen share here. So the shopping values is one of the other categories, or some of the biggest drivers of 2024. People are shopping with their values, not necessarily with their wallet. So they want to know, is the brand good for people, planet health? They're looking for things like B Corp certified upside ingredients, regenerative agriculture, which is to your point, Jacqueline, like there's an element, yeah, sure, maybe they like the carnivore diet, but then how does that does that fit in with this other component of the values, the planet, sustainability, etc.? Interesting. All right, we could probably talk about this forever. Let's go on to the next one. The next topic, top supplement companies, fastest growing brands for 2024. Now, I just found this on Google, so I don't know how like legitimate this source is. And Bobby, I don't know, or Jacqueline, if you have better resources, let me know. I'll just flash like the first couple. Seed probiotics, they seem to be growing here. I think they're very well known, in my opinion. I feel like people seen them on the Facebook ads or Instagram. Then you go to, is it Vitable? And these guys, I was looking at them before this recording. They do like personalized GDC vitamins. And the last one, I just want to show you guys this. Kodiak, are you familiar with them? I'm not. I'm curious to see if anyone's like, oh yeah, no, okay. Yeah. Now, I'm going to show this. I hopped onto their website. Look at this. I was just like how pretty, just the branding. I was just like, okay, these guys are coming out with, punches, right? Like just heavy swings, haymakers, really pretty stuff. Anyway, it just caught my eye. I just thought I'd say I'm not sponsored or anything of that nature, but I just thought it was really cool. Thoughts here. First of all, is this accurate? What do you guys think?
I think some of this is the kind of what we talked about a little bit with the lack of innovation in the ingredients. So we have to innovate on other areas, right? Like personalization. A lot of the brands you mentioned are doing specific, like tailor-made supplements for either based on your blood type or based on your DNA markers, or really just a personalized quiz going through it and putting together your daily multivitamins. But I also think what we're seeing here, especially in the case of Kodiak, is, and I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, is the influence of the millennial market coming in here, which is something we didn't really talk about. And that goes back to, well, I guess we did kind of talk about it. So I think that millennial market is more interested in sustainability, a lot more interested in plant-based. And that is really a very, very different market, a different way to market to those people. And I think that's what we're seeing here in Cottage. But that's just my take on it. I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah, when I saw this, I feel like these guys thought, you know what? I love Sephora. I want to make Sephora packaging, but with supplements. That's what I see here. And like you look at the photography and all of it, and just the way the branding, the design. That's how I saw it. I'm like, hey, that's cool. Like, that's an interesting way of doing it. I'm sure it's not a cheap way of doing it. But yeah, that's one way of capturing that narrative for sure. Jacqueline, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think when you need to be different and you need to, catch that younger generation, the packaging is number one. And I'm always attracted to new packaging when I'm shopping for supplements. Not saying that I'm a younger generation, but it still catches your eye. So for me, having something that's personalized, it's always been intriguing. Just having something tailor made for you, I think it's a great idea, and I would like to see it more and more. And I would like to see more companies doing it and doing it better every time. I think that will be something, plus a really cool packaging, like a really, different packaging. I think it will be something interesting.
What resonates? I can pose this question to both of you. When we talk about the millennial buyer, what does that mean? Like, what is a millennial buyer? What are they looking for in particular?
From my perspective, they're looking more for that overall whole wellness, right? They're looking for kind of what we talked about earlier at the very beginning of the conversation. But they're also equally as invested in a company that's sustainable, a company that kind of gives back, a company that's true and honest in their marketing and also in their messaging and also in their values. Plant-based is becoming more and more important to that group. But at the end of the day, I think everybody kind of ages up to eventually become a boomer, like I said earlier, right? So they're looking, it's not like they're looking for more of the science, because science is important, but it's not everything. It's not where the conversation should begin. But the millennial market is really just thinking more about mental health specifically right now. I think that trend is going to continue for a while with them. But more like the big difference, right, is that a boomer market is like, I have this problem and I want to solve it. Millennial market is like, I want to solve it before I have the problem.
Interesting. Jacqueline, your thoughts on the millennial buyer?
I think it's sustainability, something that it's something they look for, or they ask the question, and just finding that better for you version of products, if it makes sense. So and I'm thinking more on food and drink, how they see the products. They're still looking at the ingredients. They look at the amount of sugar, the amount of fat, sodium. They want that understanding of what they're buying, and they want a better for you version of what it was before. So I think that's something that they also do. They look at the products that they're buying in more detail, even just also understanding how it's made, right? So I think those two are key for the millennials.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back. So some of the brands that I work with, the amount of the detail of questions, that's exactly what they're looking for. They want to know, where do these ingredients come from? How are you vetting your manufacturers? How are you vetting your ingredient suppliers? They want to know this, like the supply chain, and they get really deep. And this is the consumers, right? When I'm shopping, I don't typically go that far in, and Bobby, you described the boomer. I feel like I'm a boomer shopper. I have a problem. What do I need to get? Oh, okay, that's the one and done. But when I see the inquiries come through, it's crazy how deep these questions get. The consumers are incredibly educated. They're doing their own homework. I wish that they're not just looking at mom blogs, but sometimes that's the case and that's the reality. And they're asking really good questions. And so a lot of these brands have to figure out, well, how are we going to answer them? And we can't obviously lie to them. How do you do it in a truthful way while still protecting confidential information, right? There's that balance. But my goodness, like they're so educated. The consumers are so educated. So I feel like that's definitely the millennial buyers. You guys are explaining it.
Yeah, 30 to 40 years from now, it's going to be really different marketplace. It's going to be really interesting.
I I don't even know what that would look like. I got a younger brother. He's 14 now. So I feel like that's the next generation, right? And I'm watching him, and he's just like he's just starting to get into like going to the gym and working out and understanding nutrition and all that. And I'm like, how are you gonna shop? Because I can see, like, he's got an older sister, so I can see how she shops, and then I see how myself shops, but it's very, very different. I have no idea. Like that was it Generation A? I don't even know what you call them, but I don't know, like, politically, where do they swing, right? Like values, where do they sit? I'm trying to predict, but I can't. It's very interesting to see where this industry is going to go. But I will say that they're more health conscious at a much earlier age. They're bombarded with information. They could find all this stuff on YouTube and Google and all that stuff. And I mean, now AI is coming, so there's that. It's crazy. Very good. In the interest of time, I'm going to jump over to the next topic. Now, this one is consumer behavior trends for 2024. Now, Jacqueline, I bet you have a ton of stuff to talk about this. I just want to flash this on the screen. I just thought this was an interesting summary, if you will. But what are your thoughts? What are some of the consumer behavior trends you're seeing or think we might be seeing for 2024?
Well, I think if I need to choose a couple, just because of time, I think I would say going back to sustainability, but also because of the rising cost of living. I think we will see trends of people going back to comfort food. So how can they feel good when when we're in crisis time, right? When we have all these things thrown at us, they will be looking for comfort, but also that sustainable part of the food they're buying. So I think that's something that will be interesting for brands and companies to get in that area, get a better for you version of your comfort food that's in the freezing aisle. So things like that. That's one of them, and the other it is AI. So I think how AI will play a role in consumer behavior. It's something that we need to keep an eye on, because it will change how people shop, how people prepare their food, how retailers are going to be using AI to help customers buy and navigate, the supermarket. So that's something that's going to be something for this year that we'll need to keep a close eye. I also saw something that it's interesting, which is how now people are buying more of the private label brands instead of buying, the regular brands they were buying before. And this is tied to the cost of living. It's getting really hard, so people are buying more and more of that brand. They're buying more of those. And it's interesting. It's a change in behavior that I don't think I've seen in the past.
Gosh, that's a lot. The AI one intrigued me. What's the current status? Are we seeing AI being used to help people buy? Is it part of the shopping experience? Are you seeing it at retail? What's the thought there? What's the concern, or like, what are we trying to watch for?
We see it more on developing recipes. So it's used as a tool for people to create new recipes with whatever they have in the fridge, for example. So that's how it's been used. But I think the change in behavior will come when AI is used by the retailers. So how can they help the consumer with, if they're in the supermarket, how can they help them shop for what they need? And how the opportunity to create new recipes as they're in the supermarket. So just having that tool to support creativity, I think it will be very interesting.
Any thoughts on AI, Bobby?
Yeah, it will be very, very interesting. I think how it's going to play out is it's going to be permeated in every aspect of our lives, but we're not even going to realize it. We won't even know that it's AI.
It sounds so scary. I was listening to a podcast. It was a Joe Rogan. They had the guys that did the Social Dilemma, and now they're like going into like the depths of AI, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, the end is near. But obviously, I'm joking. But at the same time, like it's so unpredictable. We don't know what's gonna happen. But I agree with you. You don't know. AI is gonna be so natural to us, and we don't know if it's NI or AI. Like, right? Interesting. And the other part, Jack, that you talked about was the comfort food component. Now, I know this is like in the conventional food space, totally makes sense. If it were a powder product that you were working on, is there a comfort food equivalent in that you feel might be a thing? Or is like, no, powder is a different format. Comfort food doesn't apply, or something else. What do you think there?
It might be related to more on the dessert type of product. So thinking on like a birthday cake flavor, right? That brings you comfort. It might remind you, when you had your birthdays when you were growing up. So it will bring some nostalgia as well. Or peanut butter and jam, something that
I love
it's
that.
comforting. Yeah, people will eat it when they want something that it's again tied to that nostalgia part. So I think there is a way to bring that into a protein powder, a powder, or even a supplement, but it's going to need to be that indulgent dessert like flavors.
Bobby, any thoughts?
Very interesting. I love where Jacqueline's going with that.
Yeah.
Like combining those two is very tricky, right? Because now you got to get the flavors right, you got to get the texture right. But I completely agree. Like having some type of comfort food that's also good for you, and sustainably sourced, and all the things that Gen X is looking for is going to be a brand to be reckoned with going forward.
It's so important if we're going to do this comfort food idea, but in the conventional supplement format. The flavoring needs to be right. The technical feel needs to be right. The whole experience needs to be right, which is why you probably want to work with Jacqueline. Jacqueline, it was a pleasure to have you. Bobby, it was a pleasure to have you. Let's do this again, and we'll see where this goes. I had a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.